Do less, yo. Do less. I'll be doing too much. Today we're going to talk about the Wu Wei principle, the ancient Taoist philosophy, and spirituality approach to life that speaks to doing less. I've seen some chat rooms where people are trying to understand Wu Wei. And it's funny how language is the struggle. Language is sometimes a struggle. They're like, well, is it literally do nothing? Is it because people will talk about Wu Wei and say do nothing? I find that some of the best approaches to the concept of Wu Wei are paradoxical. Like they are paradoxical. So effortless action, deliberate non-action. Paradoxical action seems to imply effort. How do you have action without effort? And if it's non-doing, how is it deliberate? What do you deliberately? It's non-doing. It's the what's so deliberate? But words are so crazy, right? Words point to things, phenomena in nature. Nature is not static. And the more complex a system you're looking at, the less static you should expect it to be. Right? And the words give us an opportunity to point to something at a time and a place, and with contrast. They often are endemic of contrast, or is that the right word? Endemic of contrast. The words lean into contrast because they exist for understanding. So that's just what they are. But Wu Wei sort of undermines that trick of the words by being the definitions being paradoxical. It improves on that language challenge by like leaning into the paradox. Effortless action, deliberate non-doing, effortlessness. So yeah, do nothing. There's a character I play on Overwatch. Her name is Anna. She's a grandmother, and she's really interesting. I love how they created those characters in that game. I love the voice lines in the game. They'll say things to each other at different times, and one of Anna's lines is "do less." She's just like "do less." Other characters have these long things they're saying, and she's like "do less." And she's the oldest woman and oldest character in the game. It's this wisdom of "do less." Why is do less a thing? Well, we've been saying that the actions we're taking they rest underneath our beliefs. They rest on our understandings at the time. And so at several points during this, we've talked about different groups and different identity groups. And we've talked about sort of what comes out of the people doing more in those identity groups. Let's look at MAGA for a second again. Think about MAGA from a person who's excited at the rallies to the guys on Twitter, the guys who are constantly just defending Donald Trump for everything, right? They get up in the morning, let's take like a Ben Shapiro type. Well, Ben Shapiro is actually, his is more Israel than anything else. So he's not even MAGA. But take a MAGA guy and they get up every morning and they're active. They believe that they're being active. Take a masculine guy who's building his brand. I see him on Twitter all the time. These guys building their brand, building their content, building their following. They're doing it with MAGA. They've chosen that. And so they're active every day, producing content, defending whatever the president does, warping things, playing into the game, using the language. They understand that the SEO is language based. And so it's smart. It's active. It's actually, there's a logic to it in a sense. And there's all people who've succeeded with this and people who are very famous from being a MAGA person and from their fame and parlaying that. So they actively do that and they know it. And you say like, you'll be yourself. Yes, I'm doing the thing that makes sense in a context that is completely contrived. And Wu Wei says, do less. This person, in order to realize that, first off, it doesn't make sense. Like right now, they're on there. The left is destroying the reflecting pool. They can't accept that Donald Trump ruined the reflecting pool. They can't accept that he ruined it. He tried to do something cheaply with some like inside with some guy, and it's it's all gone wrong, and it's back green again. And The left is ruining the reflecting pool. They hate America so much that they ruin, and so that's a thing they'll take. And when ICE kills Renee Good or Alex Pretty, those two activists in, I believe, Minnesota, they take whatever narrative. They take the idea that the car was driving towards the guy, and they insist that, and they protect because that's the right thing to do, because the left is always doing this, and they won't stop. There could be new information. There could be a completely, the truth is much bigger than the story they have in their heads, but they're insistent on the action. And seeing, if you're acting, if you get up every morning and you wake up and you say, I am MAGA, I am Zionist, proud, and you commit to these ideas of self, then you take action every day, and you can't stop to notice that, like, what are my actions serving? What am I acting towards? I picked MAGA and Zionist. I can go further, pick like a liberal, like Democrat person, who's someone who's committed to the identity of Democrat. Not just, we're not even talking about ideas. We're not even talking about visions of the world. We're talking about committed to symbols, committed to colors, committed to political parties, committed to concepts of nation state and blah, 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 and team red and team blue. And they commit themselves to that. And so they are taking action every day towards this thing without stopping to notice that it might not make sense anymore. And you can be really, really pulled into that. You can really go down that path. And if you get some success too, if you've become a leader in this space, you know what I'm saying, then you can really, you're committed to it. This is people, you don't even want to, of course, this is the right way to think. This is the right Wu Wei wants to remind us that the world is bigger than those separations and those classifications and those definitions and those identity markers and the way that you approach the world. You did that from your perspective, you and your peer group. We did that separately. I might have a completely different peer group that I've developed, and a sense of myself, and a sense of the hierarchies and the values, and a sense of, you know, the benefits and how to do that and how to be seen and blah, blah, blah. And I might build a whole ego that is mine, and that we can actually do a lot less. We can actually do a lot less. Your conscious thoughts aren't yours in a way, right? Your conscious thoughts, when you're, particularly if you haven't done the work, if you haven't shed the stories you hold will produce the conscious thoughts, and they are the products of your surroundings and the words and the assumptions, the language, the assumptions, the definitions given to you by your environment. So again, with the MAGA person, stop the left, they meet on those terms. They're excited to be seen on social media as one of the people stopping the left. They are feeding this concept. They are finding fault and calling things the left that aren't necessarily the left. You know what I'm saying? Like, who did what? Who's cutting up the reflecting pool? Who? What? The left wants to destroy our schools. The left wants, it's like, can you speak in specifics? They can't. They're simply involved. So you have to relax. You can be so moved in your commitments, in your emotional commitments, in your sense of the world, in your commitment to action. That acting is always a good thing. Well, what if you're acting against your own interests? You're acting because you have committed to a story that is in many ways a departure from reality. You might get up every day committed to being a Twitter success story, and you're posting lies and distortions for Israel, or lies and distortions for Trump, or anything, lies and distortions for Biden. There was a time when, you know, Biden was showing deterioration of his faculties, you know what I'm saying, as president, and you couldn't get a group of people to be honest about that. Didn't stop them from talking. They would talk about the thing they needed to defend. They needed to come up with stories and defend what they knew, when you actually need to do less. It's a powerful thing about Doing less. In my practice on attempting to do less, I find that it's a powerful thing. I mean, I've talked about this on a number of different levels, but I can take it to, again, back to the story of my family and learning how to approach my family differently, to be a different son in the arrangement, a different brother, to approach it differently from, like, I was committed to the idea that there was no other way to be. I had to be the mediator person. I needed to steel myself for that eventuality, for that absolute truth. And so I would muscle through these phone calls and try to mediate things. I would take it seriously, like there were problems going on between my mom and my brothers, and it was my job to fix it. And I knew that, and that's what it meant to be a good son. That's what the definitions were. And how interesting that the world is larger than the definitions in our heads at all times. It was larger than the definitions I had at that time. I can speak now as someone who's moved through this, who's actually challenged those definitions, that I stepped through it, dealt with the tension and the awkwardness, did less, resigned myself to a smaller role than I thought was possible. You know what it was? I thought that I had to be active, that the thing, like everything hinged on my activity, you know, everything hinged on my activity. If I didn't act in these ways, in these presumed ways, the logical ways, story logical, that everything would fall apart and it would be my fault. But how powerful to walk through it and notice that things don't fall apart, or if they do, they recombine. They recombine in new ways. Things change, things shift. And what's very important, if not most important, what's very important is my comfort, my assessment of the thing. And if I'm honest, during those earlier stages, I would really loathe the, you know what I'm saying, that role. I was really anxious about that role. It didn't feel good. Felt sad. There were times I would cry because I felt like we were in this like intractable thing. There was always some problem. And the truth is, as we've marched through it, like things have gotten weak. Things were weird before. Things have gotten weird. My mom and my brothers, I haven't communicated with my brothers in quite some time, in some years now. I can't believe that that's the case. I can't believe that that's the case. With the way that we grew up and sort of, I just envisioned an entirely different thing as an adult with my brothers. Um, but that's where we are. And I know that that's not the end. And I know that this is part of an important set of realities that had to be walked through. I couldn't imagine now that same condition of them living together, and the same condition of me trying to operate the way that I did. It was just not possible. It wasn't helpful for anyone, I don't think, and certainly not for me. And certainly not for me. So I did less. I had to do less. I had to learn to do less. There's something powerful about so many of the stories, from that story to other stories that men are burdened with about their value, the grind, their values, our values so deeply attached to our incomes and our careers and our social status. And so what seems logical is to push yourself and grind yourself to the bone. I mean, athletes talk about this all the time, no days off. I talked about it that way when I was an athlete, no days off, yo. But the truth is, any really elite athlete will tell you you can't have no days off. You have to have breaks. Breaks are part of what bring you to the peak, what allow you to be your peak self. is to rest, is to rest, is to balance. Balance. Wu Wei, at the end of the day, it's about balance. Taoism as a foundational principle is about balance. One of the things that I was saying, and I'll probably end it with this, I was thinking about like, imagine, I talked about breathing before, and I want to just, if we could close our eyes and imagine a condition where you were taught that your breathing was sort of unstable. You were taught, maybe some people actually do have this condition, but let's say that you were taught that the human condition was one of unstable breathing, where you had to be active to breathe. And you had to be active to breathe. And just imagine that, being taught that at a very young age. You could live quite well, especially at the daytime. You could be active, but I'm trying to think of a condition, of a belief that was a belief so deep about the need to be active in your breathing that like sleep would become anxious. Your sleep would become anxious because you wouldn't want to be unconscious. You needed your conscious breathing. You needed your conscious breathing. You were taught that and you believed that. You said, you would, maybe you'd find a way around that and be, but what I want to point to is at some point you get to a place where you have to relax. You have to calm to even notice and come to the deeper realization, the truth that that was a story, that actually your breathing does happen without your consciousness, that you can sleep. You can sleep and be in an entirely different consciousness and unconsciousness, and that your breathing would continue, and that you can find ease in that. And I'm imagining if you only came to realize that later in life. Like really think about that. You only came to realize that later in life, and even the process to get there, while we take it for granted because we know, because we've had experience, because we were not given propaganda and confused about our respiratory system's capacity and about breathing. It'd be hard to even imagine this, but imagine learning about it in our 30s and being taught. You might disagree. You're like, no, that's not how it works. I've been breathing my whole life. Look, I know something. And then learning to actually truly let go, learning that it's okay to take a protracted sleeping period, learning to let go, and finding out on the other side of that, finding out that it still all works, that you still woke up. It didn't rely on your effort. You are supported. The breathing that you thought was something more mechanical, that required your thought, and you thought it was more mechanical. The breathing, that whole story is actually much more creative and happens. Well, I think you would be happy. It would bring joy to know that, and it would be a whole new life. It'd be a whole new life. I think so much of stuff is like that. We believe that we have to take action, as particularly in a capitalist society. We the value system doesn't encourage doing less. We're told that there's no benefit to that, and that's just wrong. I mean, you build something top heavy, you build something unsustainable, and you stress out the people. One of the things they don't talk about in The Economist and in the New York Times is, as they talk about GDP and they talk about efficiency and they talk about all these little societal definitions, they don't talk about the human anxiety and the level of human delusion and human anxiety, depression. Or they don't properly link it. They don't want to link it either to the fact that it has to do with a disconnection to one's own genuineness, to one's own genuine expression and freedom and capacities. So sometimes, even as I'm like doing this show, I've been doing this show now for every day. I said I would do every day for I think I'm on 2 weeks now. Um, how does this play into Wu Wei, right? Like, am I doing less? Am I doing more? First off, I enjoy this. I get on for 15 to 20 minutes and I enjoy this. Second off, I'm doing a lot less than I used to, doing a lot less than I used to generally. And third, what happens by letting go of all the things, it's from a different place. So getting on every day from a place of effortless action, deliberate non-doing all the other things. Um, the energy's different. The approach is different. Not seeking trends or chasing virality. It's fun to like press into those things at times too. It's fun to play the game and to play the levers at my leisure, on my terms. See what's up, see what I can do. But Wu Wei, you know what I'm saying? Like a condition, a mindset, a baseline philosophy of ease and knowing that there is balance in that. As I said, you're the operant power and that things can come to you rather than for you to chase. And this is either a philosophy or it's something mystical and spiritual. It's whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It's just, but the balance as a principle is key. The balance is obvious. It's not just the Taoist faiths that talk about this balance. You know what I'm saying? It's a well-known truth about what is. It's also, is this physics? Is this physics? Is this philosophy? Is this religion? What is this? Anyway, it's Wu Wei, and it's something I want to share, and it's something I want to get into a bit further, maybe in future episodes. Yeah. All right. That's the message. That's the video. I'll see you next time. Subscribe to the channel, yo. Peace.